Homestead Miami Speedway brought a bunch of unknowns last week for the No Bull Can-Am series, but we learned a lot, as did the drivers. One of those big things being tire wear on the super late models are going to bring these two classes much closer than we ever expected, and we are in for an even more exciting than we ever expected, a more exciting season rather than we ever expected going into all of this, with brand new multi-class racing between these super late model and late model stock car on road courses. And this series is set certainly to do anything but disappoint. Round 2 this evening, Lime Rock Park, way up in Lakeville, Connecticut, as we get ready to go racing. Let's bring you all into the sim. Thanks for tuning in. This is Pit Stop TV. My name is Andrew Cardinale IV. I've got Gary Weaver alongside on this Father's Day, and I want to start off, of course, with a happy Father's Day to the fathers we have out there. Zach Millette has just got to the top of the board, which is surprising because Jacob Elliott for the last little bit has been leading in this session. We'll talk more about that in a moment once we get into qualifying, but we've got a lot to talk about. Just getting into the track here, Gary, let's take a look first at our track map. Lime Rock Park is a weird one. It's much shorter than a lot of racetracks we visit as far as road course racing, and it is much more tight in some sections. Look at turns 5 and 6. Sorry, turns 5, 6, and 7, there we go. The uphill section now, what it has become on this Grand Prix layout here. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it certainly serves its purpose. It's a nice little chicane right at the bottom of the hill and completely changes the flow of that end of the speedway. It
is, in my opinion, well, it's a track decision. I'm not against it. I quite like the alternate layout from the essentially the more fast flowing layout essentially of just a sweeping right hand turn going uphill, where at some points the front end of the car that you're driving, depending, probably does come up off the ground. So if that was a change that Lime Rock had made even just for that reason alone, I don't blame them, because it's a bit sketchy in a sense. But it's something like I forget which corner it is, but something like one of the corners at the Nürburgring where you will be in the air, or one of the elevation transitions. So
coming over Fluke Platz,
something
maybe?
I like. I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
I don't know it by name. I really wish I did, but
if it's the one real early in the lap, Fluke Platz is where you catch some air coming up over it.
Yeah,
that'll do it.
It's great.
And yeah, this is a really classic feeling layout still, just because of the nature of this course, and it hasn't changed for 90% of it. It's just that uphill section, which has been changed into more of a modern kind of chicane. Again, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of it, not my personal favorite thing they've done here, but it is still a very fun 1.45 or so mile road course, very short, and we're going to see a lot of action here this evening. We do... Well, you know, we have a brand new series. I'm going to have to dive into the editor here, Gary, mid-qualifying, because I'll be honest, and this is breaking the fourth wall for a second, this is a brand new series, right? Brand new everything. I don't have a button set yet for the standings, so I'm gonna have to do that really quickly while we look at the schedule coming into the season, because Miami, of course, kicked us off last week on June 11th. Here on June 18th, we're at Lime Rock Park. Next time out, it'll be July 9th. Montreal, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, where Formula One just raced earlier today, and Max Verstappen went back to victory lane, surprise, surprise. Montreal, round 3 is going to be really exciting as well. A really solid schedule as a whole, but these first 3 rounds are going to put these guys through the ringer.
It's going to be absolutely amazing. I mean, there's also even Watkins Glen is going to be insanely fun for these cars, I'd say. Mid-Ohio is a great track. Canadian Tire's also a fantastic track. Road Atlanta. I know I said Road America. It's every time I get that.
I do the same thing. I do the same exact thing.
I never get it, but Sonoma and Long Beach, that's kind of nice. I like how both of those races in California, essentially, ending in Long Beach. These cars on Long Beach now, I kind of want to see at least just like an exhibition lap, essentially, by one of these cars just at Long Beach, just for fun.
I agree, and
specifically at least.
And you know what? We don't have to worry about exhibition laps, because we'll see race laps with these cars there in a multi-class scenario, and that is something I think that is, of course, oh so special to this series. You don't see it anywhere else, really, at least not done this well. Multi-class racing, first of all, with stock cars, secondly, on a road course, and more specifically with short track cars that you usually see at your local short tracks on a Friday or Saturday night, super late models and late model stock cars. Heck, we just had a super late model race at Milwaukee earlier today, and we had one hell of a Cars Tour race last night at Dominion Speedway up in Virginia, where you had guys going 3 wide on an oval, beating and banging, and coming to the line. We're going to see that on road courses, I think, this season. We saw it a little bit last week at Miami, so it's just going to be a really, really fun season. Something that I don't think anybody really could have expected otherwise. Well, let's take the schedule down and talk about cars on track, because we have a few of them, as qualifying has opened up. A lot of times already are in. As well, oh, there we go. Jacob Elliott did lead practice for a long time, Gary. I think you might have seen a lot of that getting into the session. And well, now Zach Millette goes fast, as it seems like Elliott, a newcomer to the series, is going to have a lot of speed in that late model stock car. But we'll see how that translates into the race, as qualifying is coming to a close here. Just 50 seconds left.
Yeah, looks like only 18 drivers decided to actually set a qualifying time. Everyone else taking a look and thinking, well, probably best to just wait it out a little bit. I don't blame them, to be quite honest, but it's going to be very intriguing, especially considering that, well, Jacob Elliott only 0.005 of a second off of Kevin McCann's fastest lap.
I'll look here briefly at Zach Millette as we reload our graphics, and then you'll see our point standings that are really important, I think, coming into this race, considering how last week went. If you guys are no strangers here to the Noble Can-Am Series and their drivers, you'll know Steve Singer is 100% one of the favorites in this late model stock field, although he is he's down the qualifying order today. I think missing the mark a little bit in this particular week of racing. He's got some work to do as we get ready to go racing in just a few short moments. And there we go. Qualifying is actually ticking over. There you see the iRacing.com safety car. The graphics will reset in just another moment or two, but Steve Singer made mistakes, which is not something we've seen before here on Pit Stop TV, at least not very often. That number 6 car, usually a lock when we go road racing, made a lot of mistakes last week at Miami and paid for it, finished a few cars down the order, and we'll see him in the standings here in just a few moments as we await the grid by graphics. But Gary, what about this track in particular makes it so difficult, aside from it just being short? It's not just short, it's also quite narrow.
Not only that, it's also got a bit of elevation to it, which I personally absolutely love. Taking of course, as everyone who's probably ever run anything, any road course on iRacing knows, or at least the Master Series on iRacing knows, this track is so much fun, and it's great to throw a Master around it. And essentially eat the curbs, quite literally, in some corners. But this track especially, it's a bit narrow in some places, like you do mention. It's one of those tracks where you have to at least recognize, yeah, some of these corners will be one of those one-lane sections where it's best to just not force the issue. See also, turn 5 through, I believe 8 it was, just the uphill chicane section. But the final corner, the downhill right-hander, it's a bit tricky. There's a fine line in some cars where you can just go full throttle, but most times you have to, at least for me, you have to let off and just make sure the car stays within the lines, because there's not that much forgiveness from the grass on corner exit.
Let's take a look at our starting grid this evening. Oh, it's biting us. Okay. Well, we're going to do this verbally. I'll take you through your starting grid this evening, I guess, since it's not going to display quite right. Zach Millette is on pole. Gotta love graphics doing that. I didn't think, I was hoping it wouldn't do that to us. Anyways, Zach Millette on pole. Sean Roberts will start from second. Cody Anderson and Jason Duckworth will make up row number 2, with Joe Tucker starting from the 5th position. And our super late models will grid up ahead of our late model stock cars, and the late model stocks are giving way, as we'll see a end of the line penalty, it looks like, for our pole sitter Kevin McCann. That will promote Jacob Elliott, it looks like, to effective pole position in the late model stocks. Then Brian McCann and Michael McCoy will bring up the next couple of positions, with Mark Thomas as well, to the outside of effective row number 2. The inside of the effective row number 3 is Steve Singer. Neil Quick will start to his left side, then Patrick Piper and Jason Nethery in what will basically be row number 4, ahead of Chris Goins and Troy Radford in row 5 rather. I'll get these numbers one day. Leonardo Elijah, Jesse Redding in row 6, Will Hewitt and Mark Truxell in row 7, Josh Brown, Matthew Kopp in row 8, Chris Elliott and Eric Beadle in row 9, and 19th on the late model stock starting grid, nearly at the rear of the field, is Dalton Creech. Also worth mentioning, Zach Millette has been dropped to the rear of the field. Both of these guys, with their wins from last week, being sent to the rear. They've got to drive through the field to do it again today. Let's take a look at those point standings I was talking about. You see Zach Millette at the top of the board, Parker Collins second, and a good ways back. This is kind of a high points paying point structure that we'll talk more about during the course of this race. Steve Seeger there in third, McCann in second, Kevin McCann leading the way as 1 week is done. We'll turn things over to the drivers then as they get ready to go racing for 50 laps this evening at Lime Rock Park. Green flag is out just like that. We're racing down to turn number 1. The super late models way ahead with the late model stocks a little bit further back, and big time side-by-side racing here in the late model stocks as they fly through turns 1 and 2. They will end up being the faster class for the most of this race today, I think, in 1 lap speed. Some of the supers might be faster, but already, here we go. The late model stocks are catching what is supposed to be the top class of this series, Gary. This is not normal for multi-class racing at all.
And Jacob Elliott making the wise decision to stay behind. I think it's Cody Anderson. Joe Tucker missed entirely, in fact, decided to just not take the chicane, so he'll fall back. And Jacob Elliott, as well as Brian McCann, following through as well.
There's an estimated time remaining at the top right of your screen, 45 minutes or so. Jacob Elliott is leading that late model stock class as he comes up to Cody Anderson and works his way on by out of the bottom of the hill, turn number 9 to get back onto the front stretch. 1 lap complete as they come around the Samposi Straight. And they go on by, well, Brian McCann actually had a moment there, almost got to the outside of Jacob Elliott. Further back, we've got a lot going on with some of these drivers. In fact, your pole sitters, effectively, Zach Millette, qualified first. He is up to 17th overall. And I'm looking for Kevin McCann. McCann's right behind him.
Yeah, Kevin McCann following directly through and quite literally in the tire trucks. I wonder if McCann is going to, let's see. Well, actually, I can't really run the first lap because the first lap, their previous lap on the first lap doesn't entirely count. But Millette is closing on at least Josh Brown and Will Hewitt, and this could actually help McCann. McCann could just follow right through if Millette does make room for him. He's going to try the outside, decides against it for that corner.
Millette now going to move to the inside for turn 9. Down the hill, goes right on by Josh Brown. And now Brown going to have to deal with Kevin McCann as they work onto the Samposi straightaway. Piper fastest that lap in car 38. We'll see that fastest lap change hands a few times throughout the course of the day as Millette takes it over at a 55.76. At the top of the field, you've got Sean Roberts and Jason Duckworth going after it, cars 66 and 73, while Cody Anderson uses that power down the straightaways to stay just ahead of Jacob Elliott. This could be the big story of the day. The late model stocks trying to get by the super late models, but not being able to because of straight line speed alone.
Yeah, you can see the just absolute down this main straightaway. It is going to be amazing to see this, as Jacob Elliott was right on the back bumper of Cody Anderson for the moment. But now, of course, like you mentioned, that speed, that straight line speed on the exit is just absolutely ridiculous. It's like, well, to equate to what you said earlier, it's like almost watching a Red Bull versus, well, anybody in the F1 field, really.
Yeah. It's weird because they're like a Red Bull on the straightaways and a Williams in the corners.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Millette goes on by Leonardo Elijah. That is for 14th overall as he continues his strut through the field. Chris Goins, Jason Nethery fighting side by side just ahead. This is for 8th in the late model stock class. Nethery on the outside gets passed up by Chris Goins, and Cody Anderson has been turned around, as you mentioned, right in the kind of backstretch portion of this lap. That will be worth the replay for sure as Anderson tries to get back going, and he will finally, going through the uphill chicane. This actually could be a weird rejoin. He'll find his way back onto the racetrack here in just a moment, along with most of the field. That's right in front of Josh Brown. And that'll get sorted out. Millette now ahead of Troy Radford, up to 12th in overall standings. Let's take a look, though, at what just happened with Cody Anderson in that 42 car. We go a little further back and we'll find Anderson, well, already turned around. We were just a little bit off there. on the replay. We'll take a look now, and it looks like there might be just a little bit of help from the 07 of Elliott just behind. Let's take a look.
Actually, it wasn't any contact. It was just the power down off the corner exit.
Anderson losing it as everybody scatters. He gets rolling. Everybody trying to take to the grass to get on by. That's a scary moment. That is not easy to get through.
Especially on the one of the fastest portions of the track, save for, of course, the main straightaway. So that is a very great job by Jacob Elliott to just stay off the back bumper as Sam Roberts goes to pit road.
Sean Roberts pitting from the race lead. This is early, lap 5 of 50. I'm surprised by that, really surprised by that as we come back to live picture. Here's Sean Roberts in the pit lane. Not sure why he's already in the pits. This is, you know what, he did this last week actually as well, where he pitted really, really early, I think just trying to get off sequence. But I really don't understand it, as now Jason Duckworth has been overtaken by the leaders in late model stocks. So flip the top class around, late model stocks to the top of the board, now leading with the top 2 spots overall.
Man, this is such a tricky section of the track, and it shows right there. And of course, again, the corner exit, McCoy gets right to the back bumper, and then it's just the pain of seeing the 73 just pull away, as well as the full getting loose. This is going to open the door for Mark Thomas here.
Mark Thomas out of the UK and Ireland goes right on by. That is for 3rd position in class, 4th overall. So move the 50 car up one more spot. And now McCoy dealing with Neil Quick and some others here down to turn number 1. Michael McCoy with Patrick Piper, Neil Quick, and Steve Singer right behind as they work through the first 2 corners of this lap. Jason Ethery, Kevin McCann fighting as one car spins. Neil Quick,
Neil Quick.
We were just taking a look at Neil Quick and some of those others in that group. He's way out there.
Yeah, he definitely got some help with that one.
We'll take a look, and for sure, watch Steve Singer in the 6 car here. In fact, we'll go on board with Steve. Keeping it real tight to the inside, and yeah, that was maybe a checkup, maybe a bad move all in one. I can't tell if Steve was trying to put it up the inside or not, but he ended up getting to the inside of Neil Quick, and that's not going to work going into the second apex there in turns 1 and 2. And I think when they checked up, yeah, Neil checked up a little bit behind, was it Patrick Piper, I guess? And that was never going to work out. But now, Steve Singer's been overtaken by Zach Millette with Kevin McCann just behind. So Millette is continuing to tear through the field, now up to 7th overall as he gets by Singer and sets his sights on Piper, McCoy, and now Duckworth, who's lost another position to another late model stock car, falling down to 4th overall. Here comes another one, maybe. Michael McCoy, a great run through the first portion of the chicane and lost it a little bit in the back end of the chicane.
Patrick Piper was all over the back bumper as well, saying, come on, just let me get to the opening there on the right-hand side, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. But of course, there is another chance here if McCoy doesn't get the 73 of Duckworth in between them. But we'll see how things go here.
Here comes Millette trying to get up to McCoy and Piper and join this fight. You can see the timer now tracking to Piper in the number 38 car. This could get fun if Zach is able to get there this lap, and I think he will as McCoy tries to look around the super late model race leader, and sure enough, goes on by, going to bring the 38 along with, and that was a tight squeeze as now Duckworth has his leader right behind. Zach Millette going to try to find a way on through. On board now with Millette in the 315. And I think there's a chance that Zach drives the overall lead.
I think so. It could be possible. Last time by, he was about 7. Yeah, well, not 7 tenths. Yeah, 55.7 versus Lou's 56.1.
Here we go. Zach Millette going straight on past Jason Duckworth on the front stretch and clearing him by turn 1. He has taken over the class lead as Cody Anderson gets passed up by Eric Beadle. Now Sean Roberts, who pitted about 3 laps ago, is coming up to Cody Anderson, and this would be huge. I mean, this would effectively give Sean Roberts a guaranteed 3rd position in class. I know there's only 4 of them left on the racetrack as Joe Tucker has parked it, but you'll still take it, certainly, in that position.
A podium is a podium, of course, and it's going to be an easy podium. Cody just goes wide.
Yeah, struggling with that car. I'm
He
not
does have
sure.
a bunch of damage on the front end, so
I'm not sure what the rules are in the series as far as changing classes. He might end up doing so if he's allowed to. I gotta be honest, I wouldn't be able to do any better in his position. It's not like it's an easy car to drive. As Steve Singer gets moved out of the way a little bit by Kevin McCann, here comes Chris Gones as well on the front stretch. Singer really struggling today, but this Super Late model is by no means easy to drive. If we take a look on board with Zach Millette, this is in the driver eye cam, just watch and see what he's got to do behind the wheel. I mean, he is all over the place trying to save this race car at every turn. And he's putting it in third gear really early there in turn 4 especially. He's shifting up early, downshifting a little bit late, it sounds like. He's really having to work this car.
of course you also have to be careful here with this section of the track as well. Those curves are, of course, deadly, as I think Duckworth is well, no, he's just slowing the exit, actually. He might have caught one of the curbs.
Yeah, lost a bunch of time there in the uphill section, giving those spots up to McCann, Gones, and Singer. We'll go back on board here. You'll see it even down in turns 1 and 2 for Zach Millette as he rockets up to the back end of Patrick Piper. He's going to have trouble even on this end of the racetrack in turn 1, waiting on it to come to him, waiting on it. Can't get back to throttle, and even when he does, you can see how slowly he gets back to power, and he just nurses it there into turn 3, nurses it right around the curbing. Same deal here, really easy, upshifts there into third. He is really babying the rear tires on this car. He knows he has to. This is a really scary car to drive around these road courses, or at least so it seems so far for these guys. We'll see if anything's able to change for their setups. But right now, Zach Millette, he's doing great work behind the wheel, but it's a lot of work and it's difficult as Chris Gones has trouble.
That's not the best section to be sideways. I think he's got steering damage too. I don't think so. Regardless, not the most ideal. He does get going, luckily. That's probably the best that it was already this far in versus, what, the first or second, third lap.
That's a really precarious position to be in, as he was racing with Steve Singer, caught the curbing on the inside, and that car just came right around.
I thought for a second that he had some steering damage because he reversed and then just went back straight, but I think it was just one of those moments where it's just trying to get around as quickly as possible, and you kind of forget because you're scrambling to get around as quickly as possible.
Catching a breath finally, here's Jesse Redding working on Eric Beadle. This is for the 15th position in class, and yeah, Josh Brown way out in the sticks. Boy, is he out there. This is out of turns 1 and 2. Beadle way out deep in the corner, and it looks like he got there by his own doing. We'll take a look here from the drones. Was racing right in front of the 28 of Gones that had just gotten back on track, and Brown's just going to go way deep into turn 1, catches the grass, and he's along for the ride at that point.
Yeah, it's a very notorious thing here at Lime Rock Park. I've done it myself one too many times. Turn 1 and, well, I guess turn 1's entry is very, very tricky. It's hard to keep momentum, and as well as just trying to keep it on the track at some points to the point where you slide off, as Patrick Piper was all over the back bumper of Zach Millette for a little bit. But again,
yeah, I was going to mention...
that straight line speed of the Super Late model was ridiculous.
I was going to mention Piper got passed up, but they are now 2 seconds behind McCoy. So Millette now actually almost 3 seconds behind Michael McCoy. He's got a lot of work to do all of a sudden to that 4 car. I don't know if Piper had an issue the lap prior or what exactly happened, but the number 38 lost a lot of time last lap. And let's see, his last lap time, instead of a 57.009 like it was, well, it's a 57.613. So he's just gotten way slower these last couple of laps, while McCoy is still lapping in the 55s. And Millette last time was a 56.439. And the leaders now, the immediate leaders are in the 56s. McCoy is still down in a 55 by about a tenth and a half. He might have something here for Mark Thomas. That said, he's going to go through Neil Quick, a lap car.
Oh, contact for the 36. Does he save it? Barely. Dylan Creech and Leonardo are both... Whoa.
That was a swerve.
I was going to say battling, and I I don't know if that last swerve I think was just trying to keep a hang of the car, but these two very much battling for 10th in class, 12th overall.
It's behind Troy Radford, and this was the battle and how it happened, and Creech gets turned around just a little bit, tipped, goes for a slide, is still trying to hang on to it, swerves around a little bit in the grass, and comes up nearly into Elijah's number 43 car. Thankfully, they were able to get away from that relatively unscathed, and didn't lose a ton of time. Definitely lost time, but not a ton of time, as now Chris Goins will set his sights on those couple of drivers, and this is now going to be a much larger fight for 10th, 11th, and 12th in class. Duckworth sliding back, loses the spot to Nethery now. And we're going to see a very large gap, I feel like, in that super late model class. It's difficult. There aren't many drivers that are up to the challenge of driving that car. And so Millett has pretty much solidified himself as the favorite. It's a matter of whether or not he makes mistakes, basically, or others make mistakes into him, as here comes Goins all over Elijah. This is up the uphill now into the West Bend. And we'll see if that 28 car can get on by.
I was going to say, he did do a very good decision to back off and get the more apex-centered exit, and that's great for the final corner, actually, compared to Elijah. Goins going to get the run down the start-finish straight, side-by-side. This is for 11th in class. Down to turn 1.
Beautiful.
No, maybe not, because Elijah braked first, and Goins goes wide, and that is the challenge of turn 1 at Lime Rock. Just summed up right there.
It was still a beautiful move until suddenly it opened the door for the crossover. And you know what? That's racing, especially late model racing. That is commonplace in late models. And there goes Goins up the inside. It'll be side by side as they go to the uphill. This could get hairy. Goins on the inside in the same corner he made a mistake in. It now backs off, lets Elijah have that spot. Elijah a little bit wobbly, and Goins goes on through. That is great late model racing, road course or oval, honestly. You'll see the same thing on some ovals where a driver kind of slide jobs it in, you get a crossover back, they do that a couple of times, and then finally one driver makes a mistake, and the battle is over.
I thought that Goins was more on the less advantageous line going into the uphill section there to turn 5, so I'm very surprised. I think it was the just trying to correct and making sure that, hoping that Goins wasn't there, that kind of messed up Elijah's run a little bit. Probably a bit too much momentum too.
On board with Brian McCann, as we have 18 laps now in the books, this race going by in a flash. Let's take a look at our weather conditions for this race. 79.1 degrees in the air, 84 on track. It is a relatively warm race, especially for Connecticut here in June. It's certainly summer temperatures for these guys. I think it's having an effect, just like last week in Miami. Not hot track temps, but certainly not cool either. And we're seeing the effect on tires as Jacob Elliott tries to go by Sean Roberts and finally will do so into the uphill. That's going to put McCann in a bind as he tries to get by the 66 car. He had really reeled Elliott in lately and now loses over a half second. And into West Bend, of course, that super pulls away and becomes more of a nuisance for the 3 car.
It's just gonna, there we go. I was gonna say he's probably gonna place himself on the inside and then just hope that the 66 yields, and that does happen. So Sean Roberts, though, well, maybe not. Here we go down the straightaway. Sean is saying, well, oh wait, no, he backs off. All right, well, that is that's definitely some form of commentary in real time of wondering what the heck is going to happen here, and well, that definitely slugged McCann a lot. He's now 2.2 seconds back from Jacob Elliott, so now he's gonna have to do everything he just did, but all over again and a bit faster. He's got, what, 30 laps just about, actually, at the start-finish line once they reach that.
Yeah, that was a massive inconvenience of the 3 car. That really hurt this lead battle as a whole. Now 2 seconds the gap, as opposed to being inside of 1 second, nearly down to a half second, as now Zach Millett looks ahead at last week's late model stock winner in Kevin McCann. Piper slinging it out sideways there through the uphill. And Millett was, at one point, only 7 seconds back of our race leader overall in Jacob Elliott. Now, Millett is 9.9, nearly 10 seconds back of Elliott's 07 car. So, clearly, there is a big-time issue with tire wear for this super late model. And I feel like, at this point, if the car was just a little bit more, what's the word? Neutral, maybe, in balance, if it wasn't so crazy to drive, you would have two really good cars that could almost go at it really well in the same class just because of tire wear. It seems like the Super is faster, of course, in a straight line and picks up that speed for a bit on cold tires, but then or on new tires anyways, and then on older tires it comes back to the late model stock car. It'd be interesting to see these cars in the same class if the Super just wasn't so crazy to drive.
McCann dipped his left side tires in the grass for a little bit there for a quick moment, but the grass luckily decides to not snag his car and send him off into the Armco barrier. Interestingly enough, Jacob Elliott coasting on corner entry. I was going to say it's 1.6-ish second gap now and closing to Brian McCann.
Pit stop, Zach Millette coming into the pit lane. So Millette will come on in and take, I'd imagine, 4 tires and fuel. And yes, he will. Yep, left sides go up. So this is 100% a 4-tire stop for Millette. This should be pretty much the standard, at least for the Supers, which is also something they have working against them. These late model stock guys don't necessarily need to take tires twice, if at all, in these races, even though we expect 2 pit stops. And there goes Millette. And this looks like a one-stop race for the late model stock cars on fuel. This might even be a one-stop race for the Supers based on Millette stretching this out nearly to halfway. We'll see. Just based on the lap count, it's looking like it could be that way as Millette is down and away after 23 seconds on the jacks.
We'll see. He's relatively comfortable in comparison to, well, Duckworth now, who's gotten his way into the lead for that. So, what, 23 seconds? It's going to be close. That's actually on the pit stop, so I'm looking at the wrong delta here. 41 seconds total on pit lane. So Millette essentially the net leader for the super late model class. And
it's about a 20-second gap between the two in class right now. Sean Roberts is much further back from Zach Millette, where I'm not sure entirely of, well, I pieced it together. 2, 4, makes it 6. That makes it about 9. 3 more, about 12 seconds between Millette and Roberts on the racetrack. I mean, the leader is not far behind Millette. In fact, only a few cars. But Millette should be able to put some time between himself and Jacob Elliott as you see Elliott working through this lap traffic some more. That is Jesse Redding just ahead. And we'll see if the 21 car gives way or not. This is on board with Jacob Elliott out of Illinois. A big run there out of turn 4 and drives right in the back of Jesse Redding for a moment. Now we'll dive to the inside and Redding gives way, but that was certainly hairy for a moment there out of the 4th corner. And that brings Brian McCann ever so slightly closer. The gap at least narrowing a little bit.
Yeah, somehow between all that time, the gap went back from, now it's back to 1.5 seconds now. It was fluctuating a lot. It went from 2.7 seconds just about earlier in the lap, and well, Elliott has a bunch of traffic in front of him, so this could play a factor as well.
Still on board here with McCann as we've got a pit stop from the late model stocks finally. Michael McCoy down to the pit lane.
Patrick Piper as well.
As these drivers come down for their first service, and it looks like only service as this happens coming on to lap 25. So last week a 2-stop race for fuel, this week a 1-stop race. And this is where, yeah, I mean, these guys are not going to take tires. They're going to do it on just about 12 seconds of fuel and get back out there. It was a very different story for some of these guys last week. I'm really surprised. Nethery also in the pit lane, not taking tires, it looks like. Oh, he is taking tires. And so this is
interesting goal.
This is interesting. This is going to lose him about 9 seconds in the pit lane, but he should have a little bit of extra speed. I don't know how much extra speed, as the Redding is also in. There's Brian McCann and Kevin McCann. This is the money lap for a lot of these guys. I'm surprised Elliott kept on ripping. We'll see if Steve Singer pits. And yes, he will.
It's only Jacob Elliott and Mark Thomas stay out. I believe Jason Duckworth might come in the pit road this time. We'll see. Yes, he does.
So Duckworth coming in. And the estimated time remaining still on the top right of the screen, 22 minutes and 50 seconds or so. Chris Goins comes in. Now Troy Radford. Patrick Piper is already pitted. He flies down the front stretch and passes all of these guys back and gets right up to being right behind Kevin McCann. As far as the standings go, about 7 seconds the difference though. So as these guys all work back out, McCann is the top driver that has pitted. Brian McCann, that is.
Oh, he just overshot the first apex of... Oh, man.
Didn't lose the spot, but lost a little bit of time as Michael McCoy now looks on from the 4-car. And this is closer than these two were before the pit stops. This is why. A 12.5 second stop for McCoy, 13-second stop for McCann.
And plus the lockup that just occurred for McCann as well. Looks like leaving pit road just now. It's going to be Jacob Elliott. He goes to turn 1. So they're going to be passing Mark Thomas right now when they do. Second car in line.
Oh, and Mark Thomas stuck behind Mark Truxell, who's slow back onto the racetrack from the pit lane, and there it is, contact. That sends Kevin McCann around. Mark Thomas going to have to get on the mic and apologize for that one. And McCann is way, way out there right now. He is clearing the grass of Lakeville, Connecticut here, doing some landscaping.
Urban exploration. I think I see what he's trying to do. That might more than likely will get him a slowdown penalty, no doubt. So it's going to be probably even a course cut penalty. I've never seen anyone do this. So I'd be very surprised if it's only a course cut penalty. He was shoved down. Yeah, it's just a slowdown penalty.
Interesting there for Kevin McCann as he rejoins right behind Steve Singer. McCann, of course, won last week at Miami. Very different story here today as he runs 8th in class, 9th overall. Trouble for sure for car 33. Let's take a look at the point standings again, by the way. As we'll go on board here with Kevin McCann. Actually, we'll go on board with Michael McCoy, as he's quite close to Brian McCann, the brother to Kevin, who is now mired deep in the field. Here's a look at those standings as Leonardo Elijah comes into the pit lane. Kevin McCann, Brian McCann, 1-2 last week out of the Carolina Club. Steve Singer went 3rd, Chris Goins 4th, Mark Thomas 5th. And this is a very different look to today's race with Jacob Elliott leading. Brian McCann in 2nd is about the only consistency we can find. Mark Thomas runs in 3rd to Michael McCoy in 4th. I don't recall McCoy even on the racetrack last week. Of course, Elliott wasn't here last week either. Patrick Piper, I don't think, was here last week, so a whole lot has changed as now Singer is down in 6th, Kevin McCann is in 7th, Chris Goins is in 8th. Those are 3 of our top 5 from last week at Miami. And that's just in the late model stock cars.
That's just a pure shuffle throughout this week.
Brian Rose, I don't think is here today.
Nope.
So no Brian Rose in the race. Jason Nethery is down in 12th spot overall, 10th in class. Neil Quick has already been lapped. In fact, Neil is down in 19th overall, 16th in class. Troy Radford, however, is actually in his same position from last week at Miami. He is 9th in class as Eric Beadle runs 15th. In the supers, you can see Millette right back where he belongs up top. Parker Collins not in this race today. Sean Roberts second, as to be expected. Jason Duckworth and Joe Tucker, the other two. Tucker out of this race in 24th overall. And Anderson, unfortunately, well down the order as well. He is 21st overall. That is the last car in this race. If we talk more about the standing, the schedule, just briefly, as actually Sean Roberts comes back down the pit lane. If we talk about this schedule briefly, what stands out to you personally here, Gary? I think the Roval at Miami has to be the first one that stands out to me.
Yeah, it's one of the, I think, double checking, just looking at the schedule. Yeah, that's the only track on this schedule that is essentially a Roval and not necessarily an established road course. So that's one of the unique aspects about this schedule. That's what stands out to me. But it's also pretty much a mix. We have Lime Rock Park, of course, where it's kind of short, a little bit of elevation, and some couple tight twisty corners, but mostly based on a fast-flowing circuit, mostly. Then we have Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada, in Montreal, essentially. And that's basically just all straightaway and a couple twisty bits here and there, let's be honest. Watkins Glen It's Watkins Glen. Whoever doesn't know Watkins Glen, be very surprised. Mid-Ohio is a fantastic track. Man, I have to go with Road Atlanta for something that's going to be very intriguing. It's always Sector 1 for me.
Whoa, Dalton Creech!
Whoa, yeah.
Oh, Jesse Redding just gets by on the curbing, but Dalton Creech sideways there in turns 1 and 2. And he will fall down to the 15th position now in class behind Eric Beadle. Here comes Neil Quick. So it was a decent race in the midfielding classes now. A not-so-decent race for Dalton in the rear of the fielding class. There's the 2-car of Neil Quick trying to find a way by contact, and Neil now will be sent off into the grass. So problems for the 2-car now. Meanwhile, up ahead, Zach Millett now works up to the 43 of Leonardo Elijah, as Millett has not been able to get by Patrick Piper.
It's relatively, well, we'll see. You might be able to get by here, depending on how these next few moments go. There is lap traffic in the form of the 5 Mark Truxell, just in front of Piper. But Millett should be able to get the run, or at least a run of sorts, down this straightaway here, down to turn 5. As, yep, there goes Piper off track.
That could get hairy. That was close. Ooh. Piper hard in the Armco barrier there out of turn 4. Now back across the racetrack in front of Redding. This will be scary. Now off the track again, comes back on. He is not having a fun time.
In fact, he's technically served the slowdown. He went so slow through that corner cut that it technically counted as serving the slowdown. And now he's got all these 3 cars behind him.
Jesse Redding, the 21, gets passed up. He's a lapped car, but the 6 and 33 are for position. Steve Singer, Kevin McCann, they're racing for 6th. And McCann is going to be aggressive, I think, on this 6 car. Maybe not. It was looking like he was getting a little bit unruly, a little bit impatient behind the 6 car through the back end of that last lap, but very patient there in turns 1 and 2 as they come up on a slow car on the inside, that being the 22, it looks like, on Matthew Kopp.
He goes 22, and I think Bringer's going to get to Piper here down the straightaway just about. We'll see a little bit of a tail kick there from the back, from the rear tires of the 6.
Singer nicely to the apex. At least the first apex up the hill. Every car, each one of these drivers in that battle had something different that was smooth. It was smooth on exit from Piper. It was smooth to the first apex for Singer. And I think following certainly was nice from Kevin McCann. The way he got in there deep but still did not get in the back of the 6 car. Everybody did something nice there, and you can see they're all still in a line. Singer down to the inside for turn 1, looking. That's going to open the door maybe for Kevin McCann. Singer, though, keeps it nicely down on the inside, protecting for sure. Really good racing between these through. The damage for these 3, for the damage for Piper, the in the middle kind of aspect for Singer, as there goes Anderson into the grass in the foreground. And then I think McCann's faster, but of course is behind the mark right now because of that issue he had a little bit ago. Now Singer looks to the inside into the uphill, and that binds him up once more.
McCann had the smart decision to just back off, and thinking those 2 were going to go side by side, and just decided, you know what, I'll race the track here at this point rather than the cars. And at some points of racing, that's what you want to do.
Here we go.
Ringer wants to try and race Piper. That actually scared Piper offline.
Oh, Singer goes on by. Here comes McCann now on the 6 car. And Singer defending down the front stretch. But here comes Kevin McCann, last week's winner from Miami. He gets a 2-for-1 between the downhill and turn 1. And gets on by not only Patrick Piper, but also Steve Singer. Going on by for the 5th position now on the racetrack. So flip-flop that entire battle, and I think that's about the way it would have worked out anyways. McCann, I think, is the faster car. Singer's in the middle of the 3, and Piper is just a little bit off now with that damage he's taken over the course of this race. They do have 15 seconds, though, back to Chris Goins, as Zach Millett was only a couple of tenths behind Mark Thomas briefly, who has now been passed by the 4 car of Michael McCoy. I think Thomas' tires are starting to wear.
I think so, actually. That's not exactly what you want here in the final, 15 laps, just about 14 and a half, since it's about to make his way up to the uphill section. He's got his, he's in the world of his own. top 4 overall slash the super late model stocks, or late model stocks. There we go. As you were, Jacob Elliott has a 7.5, just about, gap to Brian McCann. McCann just not able to increase or decrease that gap. Michael McCoy still 3rd, Mark Thomas still 4th. And that's pretty much it for the top 4 overall. Kevin McCann still staying 5th overall.
Singer was looking that time with McCann. I thought we were going to have a fight.
Oh, and that's going to be an easy pass.
Oh!
Because, yep, there goes McCann. He took too much of the curb.
Kevin McCann, another big time mistake this race. From race 1 to race 2, big difference as Chris Goins will not be able to pass him, but the time lost is huge for Kevin McCann. That writes him out of either one of those positions, 5th or 6th. And Chris Goins, maybe now, if McCann has damage, can catch back up as Piper takes a look to the outside of Steve Singer. Nearly got to the back end of that 6 car, but no dice there in turns 1 and 2. The 6 car has a chance now to maybe drive away.
I think he's trying to get more of an arcing entrance to try and carry the speed through the middle point of the apex. And honestly, that almost worked. It's just that he had a very obvious red car in the way with the yellow number 6, white number 6 on the side on top of it. So it almost worked out, but Piper's going to be a bit under fire here, actually, from number 2 of Neil Quick.
And a slow car briefly. This is Eric Beadle as those fights go on.
And just like that, that battle settles out.
This is Beadle down into turns 1 and 2, gets in deep through the grass, and eventually found his way back on as Zach Millette finally gets by Mark Thomas. Let's just go straight from the replay to this fight then, and watch Millette as he sets up Thomas, I'm assuming for a turn 1 pass after the downhill. Let's watch what Zach Millette does. And then we're coming to another replay as it looks like Dalton Creech and Sean Roberts have just had a moment. This is the pass from Millette onto Mark Thomas, and this is huge. That might have been a slowdown for the 50 car.
Oh, it was definitely a moment, and it's not a good moment. Chris Goins also got caught up in that as well.
Dalton Creech way out at the West Bend chicane. I'm not sure what he's doing here. That's very, ridiculous.
Very unsafe rejoin.
I don't know what's going on here. Here's the onboard for Creech. Let's listen for a second. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he made a mistake, but that rejoin is awful.
He did slow down to the left turn, just not enough, and that with that left-hander, you have to slow down a lot, and that was just right into the racing line.
I mean, this particularly is just awful. You are perpendicular to oncoming traffic. Roberts nowhere to go. Here comes Goins getting a piece of it right in front of Beadle. That's really a shame. That is really silly. I don't know what else there is to say there. I want to get Roberts' perspective here on board. There's no level of apology that's going to make this any better for Roberts or Goins.
Nowhere to go.
Thankfully, Beadle got on by, I think, without issue, but that's certainly very, very unfortunate to see on the racetrack. Now Creech out of the race, Anderson out of the race, Brown, Elliott, Tucker, and Hewitt all out of this race. Now 6 cars behind the wall, leaving 19 on the racetrack. Not much of a fight for the race win. Jacob Elliott is clear of Brian McCann by 7 seconds and change as 1 car is out in the dirt. And I think it's Matthew Kopp, and it is.
I think, yeah, it's pretty much at this point, it's now to 9 seconds between Jacob Elliott and Brian McCann, so the only thing McCann could really hope for is just a lot of mistakes or a lot of lap traffic from in front of Jacob Elliott. But, well, I think McCann is more in the lap traffic, and Michael McCoy sitting in 3rd place. About 4 seconds back from Brian McCann, could potentially have a shot at 2nd place.
Looking at the last few lap times, at least the last lap time for McCoy versus McCann, McCoy's last lap of 57.073, McCann's last lap of 56.8. So a 2/10 difference, the advantage right now to Brian McCann. We'll see what it is across the line this time. With a 3-second gap in between them, the difference across the line...
About 2/10.
Yeah, did they run nearly identical lap times?
Yeah, it's a 56.987 for Brian McCann, and then Michael McCoy 56.795. So rounding about 2/10. 2/10 faster in advantage.
There we go.
McCoy, but he's got a bit of traffic in front of him.
Took a long time for my timing and scoring to update. McCoy, though, yeah, you can see, lost a lot of time right there in the uphill following Nethery. 4.1 seconds now. There'll be 8 laps to go this time by. It's not undoable, I guess. It's not outside of the realm of possibility for Michael McCoy, but it's impossible is the word I was looking for. But now 4.5 seconds onto the front stretch, 4.6. That's not going to be easy, although now slowing down is Brian McCann. I think that's just turn 1. It just brings those times back together, so... Still 4 seconds regardless, no matter how you want to look at it. And this traffic in front of the 4 car is really tough. Cop slow on the inside. McCoy tries to go to the inside. Nethery gets around, and now the 4 is stuck behind Cop again.
And there he goes.
That is difficult as a an oncoming driver in the lead fight, or well, I guess leader positions like that. That is always difficult.
Looking through the timing and scoring, it looks to be, well, I would say the closest battle is between Kevin McCann and Patrick Piper, but no, just a lap ago, Patrick Piper got passed by Kevin McCann, and everything's pretty much settled out by this point. So
Piper's had more issues then. Last we saw between these two was McCann being broadside and
sideways and the runoff.
Oh, yeah, that's a weird spot. That is in the uphill runoff. Yeah, up that chicane. Weird spot for the 2 car to be in. Must have got in deep.
Got the curb. And just spun right out to the, it's essentially the, another turn, but in this case it's more runoff.
Nethery now giving way to the 4 car of McCoy. What is interesting about that is Nethery was racing Duckworth for overall position, albeit in separate classes. I don't think they'll tango very much. I don't think Nethery really even cares about that too much, aside from maybe some bragging rights if he's able to go up there and beat second place in the Super Late Models. I think that's really the only thing he'd have going for him. Meanwhile, Chris Goins has just been lapped. Now Patrick Piper, the final car on the lead lap, as we were just talking about him, must have had some kind of issue. McCann has gone by, now Singer's ahead. As there's a look at the very clean number 6 car. Castle Packs power on the hood of that machine. Steve's had a clean race-ish, but he's definitely been in a couple of moments. Remember, he had that issue in turns 1 and 2 where he turned 1 car out. I think that might have been Neil Quick early in this race. And then, of course, little bumps and scratches through the mid-portion fighting with McCann and others. As we have a pit stop here from Zach Millette, and this is going to narrow the gap big time to Jason Duckworth, but it's not going to do it enough. Duckworth's still way back of the 315 car.
I forget how much fuel these cars take and how long it does take to refuel, but 7.8 seconds for the last, what, just about 5-ish laps. Of course, Millette's going to have the, probably might have the leader, the overall leader bearing down here on them, but other than that, he's still coasting as well. I'm wondering what's going on here. Maybe it's just how low the revs are.
We usually expect about we're usually going to expect, I should say, as it's only race 2 of the season, we're usually going to expect 2 pit stops, but some tracks will end up being a one-stop race by nature, and this could just be one of them. There is a lot of time for these cars in particular where they're off throttle, and that, of course, is burning less fuel than if they're on throttle as Piper comes into the pit lane. I'm surprised. 25 might be exactly on their marks. We could have some of these guys coming in right at the end of this race that have been trying to save enough fuel to go to the end, but just haven't been able to do it, as there is a fast repair for Patrick Piper in the 38 car. and he will get back after it. Chris Goins goes by. Jason Duckworth, I think, will as well, and he does.
Piper's not taking tires. He's just taking a full tank. I think that's a... oh, no.
A long time in the box. This is more than this must have been a penalty. This could be... This could be an incident penalty. Usually that'd be a stop and go. Could it be a hold?
Was it a speeding penalty? Because I did see smoke on pit entry. I'll take a look momentarily. Because pit entry is 35, but he met the 35 mark, so... That
definitely looks like a speeding penalty, just based on 43 seconds. Looks like he came in for like a splash and dash and collected himself that 40-second penalty on entry. But Piper now gets on the racetrack behind Mark Truxell, it looks like. And yes, Truxell, the next car up the road from Piper.
After the race, of course, I'll take a look at the session events, essentially, which is all just the listing of penalties and whatnot, and pretty much everything that's happened, and see what happened here exactly with Patrick Piper. So we won't have to wait long, luckily.
Troy Radford having some connection difficulties. He's been back here kind of blinking on his own, running the 14th position in class. Good that nobody's really around him immediately, but as we have 3 laps to go, this is money time for all of these guys. Will we see more pit stops potentially, as here comes Jacob Elliott down the Samposi straightaway. 2 laps to go right there. One more car pitting, it's Piper again.
Oh no.
So something definitely... What he might have done, Gary, is tried to eliminate pit service and not taken enough fuel potentially? That, or he has to come back in. Could he have been speeding on exit? Is this another 40-second penalty he has to serve? No, he's coming in for tires. With 2 laps?
Is he trying to go for the fastest lap, perhaps?
You're not going to get it in 1 lap.
Man. Well, Jacob Elliott is just now coming around.
Yeah, that's a really odd situation for sure. Anyways, here's a look at Jacob Elliott. Onto the front stretch now. White flag this time by. They go by quickly here at Lime Rock Park. 1 more lap to go for car 07. Brian McCann in second. He'll go on by the flag stand this time as we officially take the white flag presented by Whiplash Simcams. And here's our best fight on the racetrack. Kevin McCann, Steve Singer. This is for the 5th and 6th positions on the racetrack overall and in class, and it could get a little bit spicy. A couple of drivers I thought that would be much more prominent in today's race are really, I think, going to fight it out here for these last couple of points inside the top 5.
Be one heck of a battle. They'll get the white flag this time by, as Jacob Elliott is coming around to the second to last corner now.
So just a couple more corners to go for Jacob Elliott, and here we go. Out of the final corner, it is a race win. It is first start for the 07 car to victory lane overall for the late model stock of Jacob Elliott. Brian McCann will come around to the front stretch and take second. Michael McCoy will easily take third. Mark Thomas is just ahead, though, of Steve Singer and Kevin McCann. This could get fun for 4th, 5th, and 6th on the racetrack. Bit of trees there, but Singer's got company. I don't think there's going to be any change in position. Old tires, respect from these 3. I just don't think there's anything going to change these 3 spots. Onto the front stretch they go. Is anything going to happen? To the line. No change for those 3 spots as Zach Millette comes around West Bend now. And he will collect the super late model victory in just a moment as he works through the downhill section and back on to the front stretch. Another race win for the 315 car as he goes to victory lane in Connecticut.
What a race this was.
Chris Goins across the line. He was 1 lap down Duckworth as well. So Elliott puts a lot of cars 1 lap down all the way up to 7th position. So 8th through 19th still running at the end, all 1 lap down. That's what, 13 cars by the time it's all said and done. Impressive run here from Elliott today. I don't think I saw a single mistake out of that 07 car, and he will come around and fittingly, I think, celebrate a little bit here at Lime Rock Park as soon as they get their podium picture on the front stretch. Gary,
Go ahead.
it was a pleasure having you, as I'll let you get your point in here.
Overall, I very much enjoyed this, and now, of course, the 07's going to burn down. He had a very, very great race today. Looks to be... I see. Oh, right. So, it's both, essentially. A lot of issues for Patrick Piper. What happens is that he got a penalty for too much damage, essentially. The black and white meatball flag. The black and orange meatball flag. And then he got speeding in the pits and held for 15 seconds, specifically. So he got both of that. Pretty much right at the, I believe, pit exit is when that occurred.
Well, let's take a look at our unofficial race results this evening. Jacob Elliott surprising a bunch, I think. Straight to the top of the board, led 46 laps of this race. I think what's more surprising is that we saw this much of a disparity between late model stocks and super late models. I think we knew on pace it would be close to being a late model stock race, but there's a lot of learning to do with this combo. There really is. And I commend the No Bull Racing Series on taking this leap of faith with these cars in this format. But there is a lot of learning for us to do, that's for sure, as you see how it all sorts out here on the top 10. McCoy and Thomas, 3rd and 4th. Steve Singer, Kevin McCann there in 6th, as his brother Brian McCann goes 2nd. The second week running. I'd imagine he's our points leader after today, the way this all works out. Zach Millette will take the super late model win once again. Only 2 spots on the racetrack ahead of Jason Duckworth after Millette had to pit. Goins in 8th. Duckworth 9th, and Jason Nethery takes the overall top 10.
And then 11th through 20th, we had Troy Radford, who had a quiet race, but overall, he did pretty good. He kind of, again, a quiet race, but a quiet race doesn't mean it was a bad race. He started in 9th, only dropped 2 positions, but on paper, at least he still finished, and I'd take that at the end of the day. Mark Truxell finished in the 12th place position. Leonardo Elijah finished in 13th. 14th was Jesse Redding. And then finishing out, rounding out the top 15 was Eric Beadle. 16th overall was Sean Roberts, but 3rd in class for the super late models. Patrick Piper, who had, of course, the penalty and both speeding penalty and repair penalty at the very end, finishes in 17th, 2 laps down. Neil Quick ran into some issues, especially in the chicane portion with a couple curbs. He finishes in 18th, Matthew Kopp 19th, and Dalton Creech rounds out the top 20.
I see Justin Laxton out in the chat saying let's go Jacob, for Jacob Elliott from Team 53, and certainly props to Jacob Elliott. I just want to stress this is his first start with the series, goes out there and slaps, and this will be interesting to see now with some new drivers coming in, missing a couple of rounds. That's usual for leagues. It'll be interesting to see how the dynamic shifts and who's the top driver as we take a look there through the rest of the results. Cody Anderson, Josh Brown, Chris Elliott, Joe Tucker, and Will Hewitt at the back end of the field. Let's bring in our overall race winner this evening, Jacob Elliott from Team 53. Laxton's out in the chat, all fired up. The Uinta victory lane this evening. 46 laps led out of 50. What was it like from behind the wheel of that late model stock car?
Oh, it was amazing. Got a lot of time behind this track and this car. Really good job. Good preparation by the Team 53 guys. I do have to give a huge shout out to my buddy Ryan Nardone. He was on the pit box, coaching me and spotting me this race, making sure I didn't stomp that loud pedal too much, trying to save some of that fuel. That way I can make it a one stop.
And of course, a lot of you guys running these late models this season, of course, you are oval guys running this road course series, but you get some cross-pollination. I think there are some oval things. There's some, I guess, consistency is what I'm going for. We still had some pit strategies where even on oval races, sometimes you can make it a one-stop race, sometimes it's a two-stopper. Last week at Miami, a two-stop race. Why did you guys specifically go for the one-stop strategy, and why did it work?
Yeah, one-stop strategy is gonna be key at this place because we were right on that edge, running flat out. I think you can make it exactly 25 laps. So if you save a little bit of fuel, you turn it into a one-stop, and you save about 30 seconds overall.
And how are these tires holding up? I'm sure there is a road course compound for these cars, or at least a harder compound that works, but these are, of course, left-turning, late model stock cars that are built for 3/8 mile, half-mile speedways across the South. What's that translate like? What's the car geometry do to these tires over an hour of racing?
Yeah, I can't give away all the secrets. Tires are definitely a big thing here. Making sure you keep those rear tires under you. So there's a couple secrets I can't give out quite yet. Maybe later on in the season I will.
Well, there you go. Maybe we can get an idea of what Team 53 has for their setup sauce at some point. But I really do like this paint scheme, by the way. It's definitely a looker for sure. Congratulations, though, Jacob. A late addition here to the series. Hopefully, we'll see you a lot more this season.
Yeah, appreciate it. Good talking to you guys.
Absolutely. Jacob Elliott from Team 53. Justin Laxton out in the chat. Let's go on down, though, Gary, and talk with our not overall race winner this week, Zach Millette, who wins in Super Late Models. Here he is.
Zach Millette doing a fantastic job, finishing in, well, 7th overall, first in class. A very fantastic job running today. And of course, the absolute power of the Super Late Models at some points, no doubt, Zach, were a bit nerve-wracking, I'm sure.
Oh man, anything past the first maybe 4 or 5 laps, it was absolutely scary. I was trying to short shift as much as I could to keep the tires out under it, and even then it was trying to kick out. But that's what makes it fun, man. It's a battle.
Of course, he did have to battle a little bit of the fuel by the near end of the race, but luckily, of course, he did come out with the class win still. But how was the fuel strategy coming into this? Because, of course, I'm pretty sure that at least that second stop wasn't exactly planned.
Yeah, I didn't think there was any way to get to halfway on the first stint without coming in, but at the same time, I had to kind of come from the back, and I had to kind of send it way more than I wanted to. So I figured I was going to be pretty short, but if I kept the pace up and at least, stayed quick enough to stay ahead, I knew I could come in, maybe do a splash and go and keep the lead. I know Duckworth was doing a one stop. It looked like I was trying to keep, looking at the relative to see where he was, but yeah, it was tight. I was really hoping I could stay ahead of him at the end there.
And luckily, you did manage to do that in. I was about to say in 2 weeks, not necessarily more in 3? Well, yeah, no, 2 weeks. July 9th, we go to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. So more of a straight line track, basically, in some aspects of it, especially with the long stretch before the final chicane down to the main straight. So your thoughts heading into Montreal for the next race in a couple weeks?
I think it's going to be one of the tracks that the Super Late's going to dominate on. It's just, a good heads up for Steve Singer to make the schedule like he did. We're kind of going back and forth here. We kind of knew Lime Rock was going to be a late model stock track for sure. But yeah, we're gonna get some practice in, get some laps in as always, and see what we can do.
Hopefully we do see you in victory lane or the podium position, or somehow a combination of both, because that pretty much works. But great job, of course, today with your performance, and we hope to talk to you next week, next race.
Hope so. Thanks, guys.
That's Zach Millette with the Super Late Model race win once again. We'll move on down now to second place in late model stocks. And overall, again, that's just a weird one to me. Brian McCann, I believe we spoke with Brian last week as well after his brother went to victory lane. It's not quite victory lane on the racetrack here, Brian, but it is victory lane, I'm assuming, maybe not in the house, but at least between brothers. You're a pretty solid P2, only to Jacob Elliott. It seems like it was a pretty organized race, though, for your number 3 car. Not a whole lot of action. What was it like from behind the wheel?
Yeah, I had to learn the track, and I did do some practice in here, but maybe 20 laps, but I don't think I was up to 100%. But yeah, Jacob was real fast out there. I don't think I had anything for him, and I made a few mistakes myself, and then we got separated by something like 9 seconds. Yeah, really hard pit here. I only practiced that once, so I lost a bunch of time there. Other than that, it was a good race, clean race. I did accidentally wreck a super late model. I'd like to say sorry about that, but yeah.
How's the dynamic out there between the late model stocks and the supers? I know the super is really challenging to drive. We're seeing the effect of that very early in this season. Do you think that's steering guys even further now as the season gets going away from the super? And do you think it's going to be more of this late model stock dominance?
It's hard to say. I don't know if I can speculate on that, but it is a really interesting dynamic, because at this track, they had us on that last 2 straightaways, but then we had them in the inner part of the track, and that's the hardest part to pass in. So it kind of made it difficult. I mean, it's still fun to do, so I really enjoyed it.
Wait, Montreal's next up, and there's a lot more straightaways there. Seems like there might be a little more disparity between you guys, at least you guys in class. Is that gonna, I guess, open things up for you guys in late model stocks to do a little more battle just between yourselves?
It may, if we, have a clean start and get out in front. That would be amazing. That front was, that start was a little tough there, and I think I heard some wrecking behind me. So, see what happens.
There's Brian McCann from P2 this evening, still up on podium, and I think will be our points leader potentially after this evening at Lime Rock Park. Brian, congratulations. Hopefully we're talking to you in Canada in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Brian McCann there with the second place. Let's also grab P3 in late model stocks, rounding out our podium quickly. Since second from Supers didn't show, this is Michael McCoy from third place in late model stock cars.
P3 being at Michael McCoy overall, a very fantastic job today. Of course, a little bit of a chaotic race at times. Of course, as we see the so much. Actually, that might even be the post race. But regardless, you still did relatively pretty good. It's your thoughts here after the 50 lap race here, of course, because you came from 9th place and just snuck up there essentially by the end of it.
Yeah, it was a tough race, chaotic start. I wasn't sure if we were racing the super late models for position at first or not. And then when I realized they weren't yielding, I was like, okay, I guess we're racing these guys too. So just trying to keep it clean and keep it on track and not lock up and use up the tires and make it to the end.
Of course, a couple of the notorious portions of this track are turn 1. Because, well, it's turn 1. I'm pretty sure at least everyone has gone off there at least once here on iRacing, no doubt, on either the original iteration or this newer iteration, the repave. And, of course, the uphill chicane section about turn 5 with just the very dangerous and very ever so looming curbs.
Definitely. Turn 1 is always a killer. I was trying to make sure I hit my brake marker, lap after lap every time there. Just so I wouldn't miss the apex. And the uphill right-hander before you go blasting on the hill, that's tough too. But all of the practice I put in this week, it paid off. It helped me memorize those brake markers.
And of course, coming from Miami to here at Lime Rock to next week going to Circuit Villeneuve. Let's go with that because I will tongue twist myself. But going to Montreal in a couple weeks. Your thoughts on the schedule, at least so far, with what you've experienced?
Unfortunately, I missed the season opener in Miami due to another league race commitment. But the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Jack Villeneuve, that'll be my second race with these guys, and I really love that track. Hopefully it'll string out a little bit more than it was here. It's not like a bull ring there, and it's a lot of hard braking zones, so I'm hoping I can do pretty good there.
Hopefully, of course, we do manage to see you on the podium next race. I keep wanting to say next week just by habit every time, but of course, next race is going to be definitely interesting. We hope to see you then.
I hope to see you guys too. Have a good one.
That's Michael McCoy from third place in late model stocks. We do actually have Jason Duckworth. We'll bring him in from second place in super late models. And Jason, we'll just get straight down to the point. This is a very difficult car to drive. What is it like behind the wheel on these road courses, especially a place like Lime Rock Park?
Lots and lots of short shifting. And basically just trying to save fuel and keep the tires under the car. I think I learned in Miami, towards the end of my second run, the tires kind of started to go away, and that's when I started to make mistakes. This time around, luckily we got to practice with AI, which was really nice. So I got to see how I can save fuel and get to a two-stop and really, or a one-stop run, and really try to take care of the car and bring it home.
So do you feel there's a bit more room for growth in this class in general? Do you think it'll get better as the season goes on?
If everyone else is learning like I am, I drove the Radical SR8 more than anything else on this system, so this is a learning experience. I've tried to drive the ARCA car and the Gen 4 car a couple times on road courses. This is a different beast. It's a boat. It's got a lot of power. Yeah, it is fun to drive.
And of course, Montreal is next up on the schedule. Very different race course. It's almost a street course, in fact, with long straightaways, kind of curving straightaways, if anything, and really hard braking zones into chicanes. How do you feel for that next up?
Another week of I have a lot of learning to do.
Well, hopefully the teachers, I guess, out in the AI races don't beat you up too much. Jason Duckworth, congratulations, P2 in the Super Late models. And hey, still top 10 overall on that very challenging Super Late model. Go get them next time out in Montreal.
Thanks, guys.
Jason Duckworth, car 73, nice run this evening, albeit, of course, this is a really, really challenging car. It's interesting. You have the more challenging car, I feel like, in the Super Late models, and the more racy car in late model stocks week in, week out. It's going to be an interesting dynamic to watch evolve over the course of these 9 races, already 2 in the books. And the way it's looking is, I believe we have sorted out our schedule conflict for race 5 at Mid-Ohio, which will bring that race onto the channel. Unfortunately, though, we will be missing Road Atlanta August 27th, which is a real shame. It's my favorite racetrack, I think, on this listing, but still, this whole 9 race schedule is a marvel to look at. I really can't find a bad racetrack at all on the schedule.
I think there is such thing as a bad racetrack on the schedule. Now there's one that I wouldn't look forward to, which again at first glance I just think Road Atlanta. It's always Sector 1 with the extended S's basically. I think it's basically 2 S's. SI. Is that how that would, I don't even know. I genuinely don't know, but it's always the opening sector, and especially the blind turn. I believe it's blind turn 3, where you go uphill and then just straight downhill, and that always that's usually what keeps me away from running Road Atlanta most of the time, just because of that one corner. But otherwise, it is very much enjoyable. It's a fun circuit. So it's just it's always some sections of some tracks that I just don't look forward to. But overall, just based off of how the drivers raced here at Lime Rock, I'm very intrigued to see how they run at Montreal.
Well, we do cover more than just the Noble Can-Am series here at Pit Stop TV. Here's a look at what's to come this week. Monday evening, tomorrow evening, June 19th at 8:30 Eastern, we go on down to Lincoln Speedway, which is actually down here from Connecticut in Sim. Lincoln Speedway in Abbottstown, Pennsylvania for round number 2 of the Dirt Car Pro Late Model Series, brought to you by RaceEPI.com. Tuesday evening, 9:15 Eastern, we go on down to Southern National Motorsports Park in virtual Lucama, North Carolina. The D-Line Racing League takes that place over thanks to elevated performance for round number 6 on their 12-race season. Already nearly halfway in that very, very fun esports style racing series. And then Thursday evening, we go on down to Sebring. We continue that downward, southward trend as the North American Racing League closes their schedule 8:30 Eastern from Sebring International Raceway. Gary, you are in that fight, not for a championship in AM class, but hey, maybe you can get a little closer to that top 10 potentially in points. Why do these we'll say oval guys on a road course this evening need to tune in to this road course broadcast on Thursday with Porsche Cup cars at one of the most challenging circuits on the schedule?
I still have yet to practice for that. I'm about to after this. We'll see. But, I did look at the point standings, and in fact, taking one more look at it, and I feel like I'm looking at the wrong thing because somehow I'm 10th place in the standings. What?
Wow.
Okay. Real-time reaction. I guess there was a second drop week that was applied, or else I missed something.
Yes.
I'm not seeing a second drop week, which is really weird. But I guess they'll probably adjust that. But yeah, somehow I'm 10th in the standings. I was expecting to be at least battling for the top 15, which I definitely would have accepted. But at this point, I'm more battling to stay in the top 10 in at least the amateur class in the AM series rather. 2 races that night, amateur, which is what I'm running in, and then pro am and pro. Just a bit, pretty much directly afterwards. So it's going to be a very, very challenging circuit. I've not run Sebring before, much to the shock of Andrew, of course, when I told him on Thursday. It's just going to be a fantastic race, though. Sebring puts on a bunch of great racing, and I'm excited to challenge the very bumpy circuit and be slightly terrified.
Hashtag respect the bumps. Of course, next Sunday, it's an off week for this Noble Can-Am series. Then the Sunday following, as we get into July, will be round number 3 of this very, very fun series as we head on out to Montreal. It has been fun. It has been real, as it always is here at Pit Stop TV. A big thank you to all of our partners here with the channel. Of course, Whiplash Media, SimCams, ATVO, CC's Business, and everybody else that puts their heart and soul into these broadcasts. Thank you, as always. Gary, thank you for being here this evening on such short notice. We hope to get Zach Burtis back in the booth for the remainder of this series, or maybe even do a bit of oscillation between you guys. We'll happily have that. And, of course, a big thank you to all those who put their hard work in, even in kind of different roles. Of course, a thank you to all of these not necessarily partners, but these groups who allow these broadcasts to be possible in audio: ATVO, Whiplash Media, SimCams, OBS, and iRacing.com. And a shout out as well, while we're at it, to Steve Singer and everybody at the No Bull Can-Am series. This is a very fun series concept. I look forward to seeing it evolve over the course of the season. And of course, these points battles are going to get more and more fun as we go on. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time out. For these guys, it's Montreal on July 9th. Otherwise, we're right back here on Pit Stop TV tomorrow from Lincoln Speedway with dirt late models. That's going to be a lot of fun. 8:30 Eastern. Be there.